Tonight we'll be going on a magical adventure on the coast of the Spanish island of Mallorca, following a man named Ben as he helps the mythical god Poseidon with a very important quest. This is a 2-part story, and we'll have the second installment coming out in 2 days' time on Wednesday night, one continuous long play episode that we'll be releasing as an additional bonus also on Wednesday. So, make sure you're nicely settled in, finding whatever position feels right for you at this moment. And if you find it helpful to do so, then gently slow your breathing down, easing into a comfortable rhythm that encourages a greater sense of relaxation. And just take a little time to check in with yourself. Sense any tension lingering in the body, or any thoughts that are vying for your attention. And just accept and acknowledge it. Sometimes, particularly at night, we can easily end up in a kind of battle with ourselves. We often go in search of the right thing to focus on so that we can fall asleep. And that sense of looking or searching for the idyllic conditions to fall asleep sometimes ends up leaving us more flustered and disrupted than before. So, just allow your mind to wander as it pleases for a moment, without any resistance. And just accept and feel comfortable with letting go of control. Gradually, as you listen along to my voice tonight, you can allow those thoughts to subside. And as each one disperses from the mind, your head can sink deeper into the comfort of your pillow. We're now ready to begin our adventure. So let's join Ben as he jets off on a dreamy trip to Mallorca. As a travel writer, Ben was used to moving around. He'd been all over the world. But this summer, he was going to a place that he'd wanted to visit for a long time, and he couldn't wait to get there. Ben specialized in writing about beaches, as these were his favorite spots. On this trip, he would be flying to Spain, one of the countries with the best beaches in the world. After doing a lot of research, Ben had decided to visit Mallorca, the largest of Spain's Balearic Islands, which are located in the Mediterranean. Here, he would stay in Porto Cristo, a small fishing village on the eastern coast. Ben was a great swimmer, and he enjoyed diving as well. Porto Cristo seemed to have some nice diving areas, which was what attracted him in the first place. When Ben finally boarded the plane, he could barely contain his excitement. As the airplane reached its cruising altitude, he opened the window shade and watched the clouds. The plane was flying smoothly, and the clouds looked like white, fluffy cotton. Moving through the clouds reminded Ben of how he felt when he was floating in the water. He felt the same kind of lightness, like he didn't weigh a thing. For a while, he watched the changing shapes of the clouds and imagined that he was a small, light bird crossing the sky. He felt a sense of freedom, imagining that he could go anywhere in the world just by flapping his wings. As he imagined this, Ben felt his body becoming even lighter. When he pictured the bird's wings moving effortlessly, his own arms and legs felt particularly light and relaxed. Relaxation finally took over his whole body, and when his eyelids fell under the spell, he calmly drifted into sleep. Some hours later, Ben was woken up by a voice coming through the airplane's speakers. They were about to land. Ben fastened his seatbelt and rubbed his eyes. Through the window, he saw pieces of land that seemed to float atop the blue sea. As the plane approached the ground, the islands became clearer. Ben could see flashes of green, brown, and ivory as the trees, plants, and rock formations grew in size and detail. He was already imagining all the things that he would do once he landed. His mind and heart were filled with excitement. A little while later, Ben got on the bus to Porto Cristo, and after a relaxing 2-hour journey, he arrived in his hotel room. Ben was pleased to see that the room was clean and neat. The colours were a combination of white, light browns, and light blues. The bed had just been made. Ben lay down and took a deep breath. The air smelled nice and fresh, and the pillows and sheets were very comfortable. The room was not that big, but it was extremely cozy. It felt like his own personal nest. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly and deeply as he began to unwind. As he was relaxing on the bed, he felt a breeze on his feet. It was coming from a sliding door. Ben got up and stepped outside. On the balcony, he caught his first glimpse of the gorgeous hotel pool. It was huge. Breathing in, he noticed that the air was salty and tasted like the ocean. As he took in the beach scent and the view of the pool, he wanted to be at the seaside right away. He got ready and left the hotel. Once Ben was outside, the salt in the air was more evident. The breeze carried the essence of the ocean throughout the town. Ben could imagine tiny grains of sand getting tangled in his hair as it was combed by the light wind. It was about 4 in the afternoon, and the sun was just right. It was bright, but not so hot anymore. Ben felt the comforting warmth of the sun's rays as he made his way down to the beach. The sand was fine and smooth. Walking barefoot felt like being massaged by tiny beads. The water was a clear shade of blue, and some areas even shimmered turquoise under the sunlight. The ocean looked like an infinite pool of freshness and beauty. Admiring the view in front of him, Ben felt deeply relaxed. As he let the water wash over his feet, he could feel a wave of calm rising through his body. The moment felt so peaceful, he wanted to stay there forever. At last, Ben continued to make his way through the shallows. He walked slowly as the small waves lapped over his feet. Then, all of a sudden, Ben felt a slight tremor in the ground beneath him. Though it only lasted for a few seconds, he was sure that there was something unusual about the tremor. Maybe even something magical. Though perhaps it was just his imagination. But then he saw something peculiar out of the corner of his eye. It looked like a golden stick flying past him. Now, Ben was convinced that something strange was going on. As he squinted and looked around, trying to find where the stick had come from, he noticed something else. A few meters ahead, the water was moving, and these weren't ordinary waves. Curious to see what was happening, Ben moved towards the strange waves. And then, when he was almost there, he saw a man emerging from the water. Before Ben could come any closer, the stranger raised his hand in a commanding gesture, telling him to stop. The man had a peculiar look. He was middle-aged, muscular, and taller than average. And he had a long, tangled beard. a moment later, the man went underwater. Ben could see the surface churning vigorously. He wanted to get a closer look and see what was going on. But remembering the man's gesture, he continued to keep his distance. After a few seconds, the water began to settle. When it was completely still, the man emerged again and signaled to Ben to come closer. Ben walked forward, and as the sea became gradually deeper, he had to swim to reach the stranger. The water around the man was tranquil, and it also looked somewhat different, like it was glowing slightly. There seemed to be actual ripples forming and vibrating around his presence. Perhaps Ben's eyes were playing a trick on him. But before he could decide, the stranger spoke to him. "I'm in need of your help, young man," the stranger said. His eyes were the color of the ocean. They seemed calm, like the surrounding waters, but his expression looked troubled. "A very important possession of mine has gone missing," the man continued, "and I need you to help me find it. It is my golden trident, my most powerful protection against sea monsters." At first, Ben thought that this was a joke. But then he remembered the golden stick that he had seen flying past him. He asked the stranger why he owned a trident. The man looked him in the eye and replied, "I am Poseidon, god of the sea." Ben gaped in amazement. Here, standing right in front of him, was a man who claimed to be a Greek god. Poseidon explained that as the god of the sea, he had command over water. Every sea creature obeyed him. To prove this, he raised his right arm. As he did this, a column of water emerged from the ocean. Then Poseidon moved his arm in a circular motion. The column followed his movements, and the water formed a ring. When he stopped moving his arm, a perfect hoop of water was floating above the sea. Ben gasped. But that wasn't all. Poseidon then made a peculiar sound. A couple of seconds later, Ben spotted a fin emerging from the water a few meters out. It was a dolphin. The dolphin swam fast, and when it was next to Poseidon, it leaped into the air and through the water hoop. It then remained by Poseidon's side, as though greeting an old friend. As Poseidon stroked the dolphin's head, he explained what it meant to be the god of the sea. One of his duties was to protect people from sea monsters. He had just finished dealing with a group of them. Unfortunately, during this encounter, the trident had flown out of his grasp. Poseidon couldn't leave this spot because he had to keep an eye out for more. Besides, there were also other important tasks that he needed to take care of in the water. His work as god of the sea kept him busy. This was why he needed Ben's help to find his trident. For a moment, Ben was speechless. The man really was Poseidon, the ancient god of myth and legend. He remembered what he'd seen earlier, a golden stick flying in the air. When he mentioned this, Poseidon nodded. Whenever the trident wasn't in his hands, it turned into a golden staff that almost looked like a regular stick. The god seemed thoughtful as he looked at Ben. Then he asked, "What is your name, young man?" Ben replied that his name was Benjamin, or Ben to his friends. Poseidon smiled and said, "Ben, I can offer you something in return for your help. It will be of great value for your work and travels. There is a magical parchment that contains a map of this whole planet and its waters. You just need to tap on the specific water that you want to visit, and it will take you there in an instant." Poseidon put his hand in the sea and pulled out the magical map. He told Ben to place the tip of his right index finger wherever he wanted to go. Ben had been to Hawaii several times, so he thought it would be an easy place to confirm the parchment's powers. He carefully tapped his finger on the shores of Honolulu. In an instant, Ben felt his body being smoothly transported to the turquoise waters he knew so well. He had been there so many times that the landscape was unmistakable. Golden sand, palm trees, the rise and fall of lush hills in the distance. Completely awestruck, Ben realized that Poseidon was telling the truth about the parchment. It really did have magical powers. After tapping the map once again, Ben found himself instantly transported back to the beach at Porto Cristo. The journey was so quick and smooth, it was as though he'd never left. Ben thanked Poseidon for offering him this exceptionally valuable gift. It would be so useful for his future travels. And of course, he agreed to help Poseidon with his search for the trident. The god of the sea explained that Ben wouldn't have to do it alone. Because of the importance of the mission, he would be helped by a special creature. Her name was Crystal. She was a fish when she was in the water, but turned into a bright firefly when she was in the air. Poseidon explained that Crystal had a special talent for finding precious objects. She would let Ben know where to look for the trident, and she wouldn't stop until they found it. In that moment, a beautiful fish appeared in the water. She was as clear as the ocean, but she also had touches of emerald green and turquoise blue on her scales and fins. Somehow, she even glowed in the water. The beauty of her fish form was hypnotizing. As Crystal rose to the surface and came out of the water, she swiftly transformed into a mesmerizing firefly. Her wings were thin, but strong at the same time. She could fly high and fast. And the most beautiful part of her was the light that she emitted. It was bright, but not dazzling. It was a warm and reassuring glow that made Ben feel like he wasn't alone on this journey. He sensed that Crystal was more powerful than she looked, and he knew in his heart that he would be safe if he followed her magnificent colours wherever she went. Ben walked back toward the shore, with Crystal flying by his side. When they got to the beach, Crystal flew quickly to the far end and hovered in mid-air. This was where they had to start looking for the trident. But with everything that had happened this afternoon, Ben was starting to feel tired. He just needed a second of rest. He lay down on the beach and felt his head and neck sinking into the warm sand. Then his back, his arms, and then his legs and feet. The sand moulded to the shape of his body. Even the smallest grain of sand seemed to be massaging his tired muscles. Ben took a deep breath in and let the fresh and salty ocean breeze fill his lungs. As he exhaled, he imagined all the tiredness leaving his body. Crystal came toward him, her firefly wings shining in the sunlight. She seemed to understand that he needed a brief moment of rest. She flew over his forehead and hovered there, glowing warmly and calmly. Ben could feel the glow spreading through his face and head. There was something special about Crystal's glow. It made him feel like every thought was leaving his mind as it filled with pure relaxation. Ben breathed slowly and deeply, feeling completely at ease. Next, Crystal hovered over Ben's stomach. His belly was rumbling, and she could tell that he was hungry. But somehow, she managed to create a blanket of warm glow that covered his stomach. While she did this, Ben's mind was filled with images of his favorite food. They felt so real that he could taste delicious fruit on his tongue, and his belly was starting to feel full. Just as he was beginning to feel thirsty, a fresh river of water seemed to flow through his throat and body. Ben felt so relaxed now that he wasn't tired, hungry, or thirsty. He didn't know how, but thanks to Crystal, he was feeling completely rejuvenated. Ben took a deep breath as he slowly got to his feet. When he thanked Crystal, she almost seemed to have understood him as her wings glowed more brightly. Feeling ready to walk on, Ben continued along the beach, with Crystal leading the way. Ben was wearing sandals, and with each step, he could feel the smooth sand moving through his toes. After walking a little further along the shore, Ben followed Crystal into a dense area of trees and other plants. As he stepped into the shade, he noted how dark it was inside the grove. He couldn't see much at first, but this almost didn't matter to him. The little forest was full of herbal scents. Ben felt like he was swimming in a warm cup of calming tea. Closing his eyes, he breathed in deeply. He didn't want to miss any of those soothing scents. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Crystal was glowing brighter than ever. Feeling calm and relaxed, he followed the magical firefly as she made her way through the woods. Ben and Crystal carefully looked for the golden staff in the sand and in the lower plants and bushes. Then they searched the taller trees, like the live oaks and palms. Crystal flew to the highest parts and moved through the branches, while Ben searched from the ground. Sometimes he would climb a tree as high as he could and look for the trident there. But there was nothing to find, not a single shimmer of gold. As they left the wooded area, Ben glanced at his watch and saw that it was already around 2 in the morning. Perhaps it would be best to take a small break to sleep. But then he realized that his hotel room was too far away from the beach. He didn't want to waste time going all the way back. Just as he was wondering what to do next, crystals started glowing and flew along the shore. Ben followed her into a small cave next to the beach. As he looked around, he understood why she had brought him here. It was the perfect place to rest for a few hours. He lay down on the sand, and Crystal emitted her warmest light yet. Ben didn't feel cold at all inside the cave. It was warm and cozy. The sand was as comfortable as a bed, and he could feel Crystal's glow blanketing him, just like the soft sheets in his hotel room. After a good night's rest, Ben would be ready to continue his search for the trident. But right now, he was so tired that he could think of nothing but sleep. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath in. His breathing gradually settled into a natural rhythm, just like the waves of the ocean. And soon, Ben was fast asleep.